Happening now on Grid Tonight. The Sahlen 6 hours of the Glen is in the books, with Porsche Penske Motorsport taking the checkered flag. But unfortunately, they lost the victory after failing post-race inspection. What are the next steps after BMW M Team RLL inherited the win? Formerly E's Portland E-Prix saw lots of action, a race with 403 overtakes and controversial pack racing. Why did this style of racing we typically see on American super speedways leave the fans at home and abroad deeply divided on this issue? Hello to all our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. With me, Joshua Birch and Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index. We encourage everyone to comment in the chat below and ask any questions. Now here's Josh with our top story this evening.
Thank you, Kobe. On Sunday, we saw another thrilling IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship race on the Sahlen 6 hours at the Glen. And of course, the Watkins Glen International Circuit once again providing the atmosphere. Now, once again, with Until Endurance Racing, that came down to the wire with great battles in the GTP and GTT Pro in the final minutes. Unfortunately, the race ended under a full course caution behind the safety car when the number 95 Turner Motorsport BMW M4 GT3 of Bill O'Blien crashed into the tyre barrier and flipped on his roof. Thankfully, O'Blien was unharmed. Out front at the time of caution was the number 6 Porsche Penske Motorsport 963 of Mateusz Jamier and Nick Tandy, and they ended up taking the win. Also, we thought. Now, a few hours after the 6-hour race, IMSA announced the overall race winners failed the post-race inspection. Now, according to the press release, the number 6 Porsche, I know you said Toyota there, the number 6 Porsche 963 was found with a skid block measuring less than the permitted minimum thickness and was moved to the rear of the GTP class. This meant that the number 25 BMW M Team RLL Hybrid V8 of Nick Yelloly and Connor de Phillippi were the winners at Watkins Glen. The photo courtesy there of BMW Motorsport. Now, however, Porsche Penske Motorsport plans to protest the penalty and file an appeal in hopes that their Sahlen's 6 hours of the Glen victory will eventually be reinstated. The Porsche Penske Motorsport statement reads, following post-race inspection at Watkins Glen International, IMSA has penalised the number 6 entry in the Sahlen's 6 hours of the Glen, citing that the front skid wear of the number 6 Porsche 963 was less than 1 millimetre outside of the legal tolerance. The rear skid wear was noted to be well within the legal tolerance. Porsche Penske Motorsport plans to collect all of the data and follow the protest procedures. Kobe and Matt joining us now again on the show. With BMW winning, all 4 GTP manufacturers have won in 5 races so far this season. What does this say about the parity in the top tier of the category, and how disappointing is it for Porsche to lose the race win in this way?
Looking at the parity, I think IMSA's done a really great job with the balance of performance to try to make sure that all of the manufacturers have a fair shot at winning. And I got to hand it to BMW. I know this is not the way that they wanted to win. Even Nick Yelloly read in the BMW press release. He said that he'd rather win on the track instead of like this in post-race inspection, but a win is a win, and you'll take it. This was his very first win in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. But looking to see where BMW was now compared to where they were at Daytona, they are light years better. At the Rolex 24, all the other 3 manufacturers seem to really be in the fight, but the BMW was the only GTP manufacturer that seemed to be out to lunch at Daytona. They weren't too far off the pace, but they certainly weren't in contention at all at any point. And in Sebring, things got better. Long Beach, Laguna Seca, things looking a lot better for BMW. And now heading to Watkins Glen, they finally sealed the deal, got the job done. They've worked very hard to get this car to this point, and I think they have a lot to be proud of back at the factory. And in regards to Porsche, oh man, that was a great move by Matthew Jaminet at the end of the race. And we saw him when he was celebrating victory lane. He was so excited to winning at Watkins Glen overall in the Porsche. And now looking back at that, the celebrations, and then to have your hearts ripped out in post-race inspection, certainly a really disappointing thing for Porsche. And I've learned time and time again on this show I should not be making predictions on how an appeal is going to go because 9 times out of 10 I'm typically wrong. So I'm not going to predict whether they're going to win or lose. I just know if they lose, they're going to be major championship implications. But if they win, things are going to be good, and we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. I know moving forward, since Canadian Tire Motorsports Park is coming up soon, that they're just going to put their heads down and try to go out and win the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, hello guys. Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
What a tremendous race that was on Sunday afternoon. A couple of things to just pick up on the points that Kobe mentioned for BMW. Great for them to get the win, and that, as you say, that's everybody now has won a race. Don't forget that 25 car was parked at the side of the road at Daytona before tea time with a hybrid issue, and they sat there for a long time getting that fixed. So that was, and as you said, Kobe, they've gradually got better and better through the races this season, and to have them in position to get a race win, we didn't think we'd see that probably for a little while longer. So that was good for them. Shame for Porsche to have that ripped away from them, as you say. They were the championship leaders going in. Not sure actually how the points stand actually coming out of the race, but the Jam Tan car, Matt Jaminet and Nick Tandy, was the championship leaders after their Long Beach win and second place at Laguna Seca. So they had the momentum. Shame for them to be penalised, and we await the appeal. The smallest of margins, 1 mil of a skid block. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens. What IMSA do. Of course, this isn't the first time we've been talking about post-race IMSA changes. Of course, the Acura number 60 Maya Shankar got, their points taken away for them and such like at Daytona, didn't they, after the tyre pressure irregularities? But that came up much later after the race results had been confirmed. So it would have been more tricky for them to take away the win. This was at least, found out at the track on the same day in the evening after the race had finished. So we'll have to see how the appeal goes, but great for the series that now every manufacturer has won a race and they've all been competitive at different times. The point standings, as I say, I haven't looked at them closely, but they must be pretty close at the top end of town now. And the balance of performance is working. If only the WEC balance of performance could be better between the hypercars and the IMSA cars. We'll have to see how that goes through the summer. But shame for Porsche, terrific for BMW. Congratulations to them.
I must just do an apology. We've had a power cut where I am, so all the systems have sort of had a reboot. And I understand at the beginning of the show, this microphone wasn't working, and it was coming to the laptop, which means you might have heard me going a little bit too much, and the fan underneath the commentary desk might have been there. So I do apologise for that. I think we got away from it because thankfully Matt Book laptops are quite good in microphones, so we should all be okay with that. Moving on then, a team with many expected to contend but didn't have a good race was Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti Autosport. Now, when these two powerhouse organizations teamed up, we thought the rest of the GTP field might be in trouble when you consider all of the resources they had at their fingertips, especially the recent announcement of adding a second Acura next year. Now, Watkins Glen was a race to forget for Ricky Taylor and Philip Albuquerque and Louis Delatraz. At one point during the race, the number 10 Acura ARX-06 lost a wheel and had to limp back to the pit lane. You might have seen that image actually around on social media. Now, I certainly did. After the race. Now, they ended up retiring from the race due to mechanical failure. The team's best finish of the season was third at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. So at Sebring, they were involved in that dramatic crash at the end of the race. Ricky Taylor crashed going for the win at Long Beach as well. Laguna Seca was a quiet day for them, and nothing went right at the Glen. So GTP has 4 more races left this year. Do you see WTR Andretti turning this season around by getting a win and maybe making a late push for the championship? We'll start with you on that one, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, they've been the kings of Watkins Glen over the last few years. This has been their race over the last couple. They've won a few of them. And I hadn't really thought about it then until you just mentioned that they're kind of shoddy by their own terms start to the season. As you say, they've been in contention for wins late in 2 of those races. The dramatic multi-car accident at the end of Sebring, and then Ricky Taylor trying to hunt down the Porsche at the end of Long Beach and found the wall at turn 1. So they've been in contention but haven't come up with the goods. And the IMSA season really does get going through this summer stretch. And now we're out of Le Mans, had Watkins Glen, we've got CTMP, we've got Lime Rock to come as well, although the GTP cars don't come to that race. But we've got a fair few IMSA races now through the next few weeks. And then we get obviously to the Petit Le Mans at the beginning of October. So they, if they want to get a hold of it and go up for that championship, they really do need to start clicking off the wins and hope that some of the other people around them in the championship standings have some misfortune that they have had in the beginning of the season, and hope they can turn their season around.
I think if you're Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti Autosport, you have to be entering Canadian Tire Motorsports part this weekend in a must-win situation. I know it's in the middle of the summer, and you might be wondering, why do I need to be in a must-win situation now? Hey, Josh just said it. There's only 4 races to go in the IMSA season. I know it sounds really crazy to be at the end of June right now, heading into July, and we're already talking about the end of the IMSA season. I know with the GTP cars, they have Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, Road America, Indianapolis, and then Petit Le Mans, Road Atlanta at the end of the year. So there's really not a lot of time for Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti Autosport to get their act going. So I think they need to enter Canada with a must-win mindset. They don't necessarily need to win, but if they go out there with a mindset, I certainly think that will help motivate them to try to perform as best as they can to try to click off as much points as possible. Maybe those in front of them in the championship will run into trouble, because sometimes that's really all you need is just to run consistent and have others in front of you run into some trouble and get into some inconsistency. But as we've seen so far this season, this number 10 team has been very inconsistent. But as you were saying, Matt, they've certainly been in contention there. They could have won Sebring. They could have won at Long Beach, but unfortunately, it just didn't work out for various reasons. If it wasn't for those 2 crashes, we'd be having an entirely different story right now about Wayne Taylor Racing and Andretti Autosport. They'd probably be right up there, maybe even leading the championship for all I know. So I certainly think they can get over that hump and get a win and potentially make a late season championship push, but it needs to start now by winning in Canada once IMSA gets back into action in the following week.
Yes, and in GTD Pro, the number 14 Vasser Sullivan Lexus RCF GT3 held on to win despite a fierce challenge late in the race from Risi Competizione and Corvette Racing as well. Jack Horsworth and Ben Barkert as well leading the championship standings there. Vasser Sullivan completing the sweep by winning in GTD 2 with the number 12 Lexus of Aaron Telsies, Franco Montecarlo, as well as Parker Thompson coming in. The GTT Lexus is second in the points behind Brian Sellers and Madison Snow, from the Paul Miller Racing. Now, Vasser Sullivan and Lexus swept both of the GT classes at Watkins Glen. Could they also be a threat to sweep the championship in both classes this season?
Definitely, I think what Vasser Sullivan is doing right now is incredible. Since his team first entered the GTD ranks, they've performed extremely well, won races and done a lot of great things in IMSA. So it would not surprise me with the type of year that they're having if they go out there and win both GTD Pro and GTD championships. This race went as well as it possibly could have gone. I'm sure Jack Hawksworth and Ben Barnacote really happy that late race caution came out for one of their fellow GTD Pro competitors, Bill Oberlin, at Oberlin's misfortune, because that was quite a fierce battle at the very end of the race, just like it was in GTP. Between the Vasser Sullivan Lexus, the Risi Competizione Ferrari, and then the Corvette Racing C8R GTD. That was such a great battle, and then at the end of the day, Vasser Sullivan was a class of GTD Pro and GTD ran such a flawless race. And also I have to give a shout out to NBC for putting together that special story on one of the Vasser Sullivan mechanics, Bozy Todorovic. I'm sure a lot of you have seen him on social media, on Twitter and all of that. He certainly wears a lot of hats throughout the motorsports community. We've seen him work with Legacy Motor Club in the NASCAR Cup Series, work on Vasser Sullivan and IMSA. His day job was also seeing him write a few columns as well, explaining the technical nature of race cars, and a lot of people just really like the guy, and and to see him get some TV time to get his story out there. I thought that was a really wonderful thing that NBC did, so everybody can see who Bozy Todorovic is. Maybe in the future I'll have to ask him if he'll be on the Life on the Grid podcast, and we'll get to interview him right here at Grid Network, so stay tuned.
Yeah, great to see Bozy pop up on the broadcast, and he also probably will feature, and he has already so far this season, in the IMSA post-race show that they put together after every round. So that'll be on their YouTube channel over the coming weeks. The Win the Weekend, you can be sure about that. Just quickly before we get back, I get onto my point about GTD. The number 31 Wayland car is the points leader in GTP after Watkins Glen. Ahead of the 25, the Konica Minolta Andretti WTR car is fifth in the points. They are just over 100 points back, but the BMW got 350 points in their pocket just for winning at Watkins Glen. So it is very close in the point standings. What is that? 154 points separate the top 7 in the points. So with, as you say, 5 more races to go before the end of the season. Great for Lexus. Congratulations to them winning both classes. Jack Hawksworth with a stunning overtake late on Daniel Serra to get the victory. Both of those overtakes almost happening at the same time. Kobe will be knowing about that, watching it live. The Jaminet pass and the Hawksworth pass almost happened in side-by-side action at the end of that race inside the last 10 minutes. So great for them to win both classes. You know, we don't see Lexuses in many many sports car championships now around the world. They pop up here or there, but they are a big force in IMSA, and it was great to see them win both categories at the weekend, and obviously for the British car winning the GTD Pro class. Me and Josh waving the flag for that one.
I just saw a deer. That's what I was looking for. I'm joking. Oh dear, so Pablo Montoya would say.
Pablo Montoya.
Yeah, to be fair, we're waving the flag a lot this weekend as well. Well done, Jake Dixon. Didn't get to mention it on the Grid Encore show on Monday, but Jake Dixon, yes! First time win in Moto 2. Well done, lad. The 27-year-old from Dover, if that's even the right one. Anyway, taking a look at the other class winners, the number 4 Crowd Strike by Algarve Pro Racing, Oracle 07. Gibson won LMP2 with Ben Hanley, George Kurtz, and Nolan Seagal as well in there. It's been a good last few weeks for Kurtz, who also won the LMP2 Pro-Am class at Le Mans, which was brilliant for him with the so many different amount of podiums we had to sit through at the end of that show. In LMP3 as well, the number 74 Riley Motorsports Ligier took the win with Phillippi Fraga, Gar Robinson and Josh Burden at the wheel. And IMSA returns to action next Sunday, July 9th at the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. GTD LMP3, GTD Pro and the GTD classes will race in Canada. Now, the Formula E on-track product from the Portland E-Prix has divided European and American racing fans. With the long straights of the Portland International Raceway and the race distance, it meant the drivers had to prioritize power saving. This created pack racing, with the drivers very close to each other on track and not getting away from one another. Nobody really wanted to lead because they'd use up too much power. If you click the link in the video description below, you can find Joe Samiego's post-race interviews with the drivers, giving their take on the tighter than usual racing. Now, just like race fans, the drivers appear to be divided on seeing pack racing at Portland. Antonio Felix da Costa said Berlin, Sao Paulo and Portland were very energy biased. But he didn't have a problem with the pack racing if it meant the fans watching enjoyed it, because he feels like satisfying the fans are the number one priority. Nick Cassidy said he watched enough Indy 500s and mentioned how difficult it was leading, plus weaving on the straights to break the draft. Sebastian Buemi referred to the pack racing as something special. Jake Hughes was having trouble processing the experience he had just went through, calling it astonishing, but hoped the fans enjoyed the show. Sergio Sette Camera criticised the pack racing as artificial racing, not real racing, and compared to what we saw at Portland to a game show. He also didn't like the longer race distance because it forced the drivers to save even more energy, which kept everyone in a tight pack. But he said if the fans liked it, that the racing was fair game. On Twitter, Lucas de Grassi said the racing was dangerous, but if you don't appreciate, you don't understand enough, adding Formula E should race at more circuits like Portland. Other drivers shared their thoughts in a story by Sam Smith in the race. Link for that is in the video description. Jean-Eric Verne was one of the more outspoken drivers who said he absolutely did not like the racing and hopes that Formula E will change this style of racing because it's not the type of racing he knows. Mainly because he had to start from the back because his team had an illegal thing. Oh well. Sam Bird thought the racing was insane and felt concerned about safety, saying one misjudgment from a driver and there could have been an aeroplane crash. Photo taken by Grid Network's own Joe Samiego. Well, to be fair there with Sam, he had a problem in the race as well due to his own error, and it put him further back. Jean-Eric Verne was thrown into the pit lane and he caught up with the safety cars. So that's two drivers who had problems in Portland who are criticising it. But we're going to hear, as Adam says, that was one of the craziest races I've ever seen at Portland International Raceway. What a race. Adam's in the comment box with me. We were all losing it as well. You can see that on the Grid Network as well, our watch-along coverage we added in. But right now, we're going to hear from a European and an American perspective on this hot topic. Starting with you, Matt, do you think the racing at Portland was good or bad for Formula E?
Looking forward to this discussion. First of all, well done, Joe. What brilliant coverage from Portland at the weekend. Did a terrific job representing us at Grid Network, and it was great to see him there talking to the drivers afterwards and throughout the weekend. This was going to be one of, and I've got quite a list of knots, which we'll get to later in the show when we do Hots and Knots, but we've kind of pushed it forward in the show. Pack racing in Formula E. The Formula E season as a whole so far this year, for me, has been a bit. Hyderabad was great. Cape Town was very good, but Sao Paulo, Berlin, and this weekend, I didn't get it. You can clearly see how slow everybody is going. I know Formula E is an energy-saving formula, but it was just so slow, and it just turned into, excuse me, look like a cycle race. It just looked like they were doing the velodrome in the cycling where nobody wants to be in the front and nobody wants to jump at the end for the sprint for the points. It just was. That's not what I want from World Championship single-seater racing. It just isn't. I was very disappointed with what we saw. To be fair, the right bloke ended up winning, which is always good when you get a race that you kind of don't like. Nick Cassidy played his cards on the table at the weekend very, very well indeed. But coming down the front straight and coming down the back straight, it was asking for trouble in people tripping over each other. Thankfully, we only had that one incident with Nico Muller when he went spearing off on the back straightaway, but that I think was a car problem, wasn't it? More than it was contact with anybody else. So that's my bad of pack racing, and I don't like it for Formula E. But Watkins Glen at the weekend in the Mazda MX-5 races, they were pack races and they were fantastic. So what do I do here? Because I'm conflicted. Is it just single seaters that shouldn't be racing like this? Or we get touring car races like this and MX-5 races, as I mentioned, and it was my very first hot on the hot and not section was MX-5s, but back a few months ago. I don't know what I want from my well, I do know what I want from my World Championship single-seater racing. I'm not sure that race at Portland on Saturday was it.
Yeah, it was certainly an interesting race at Portland International Raceway. And on this situation, it's been really cool to look at both sides of the equation to see some of the drivers who really liked it versus those like Sergio Seti Camera, who said that this was artificial racing. He didn't really consider it real racing. As some people like to say, I would rather go to a real racetrack next time. But seeing the reaction here, especially from fans in America, it really seemed like a lot of people really enjoyed the show. I know Joe's been talking about how the fans have already been talking about next year's race, how the fans trackside at Portland International Raceway really like what they saw, and 9 times out of 10, if the fans like what they saw, this is probably what we're gonna get next year. But Joe also brought up the point that next year will be different with Formula E planning to introduce the quick charge and live pit stops, which will probably spread the field out more, where we're not gonna see this pack racing. So maybe this was just a one-time situation, but it was certainly a unique show. Certainly not like any Formula E race I've ever seen. But if pack racing becomes I guess the norm at Portland National Raceway, something you do one time a year, I guess they can't hurt, especially since we have some of the drivers who seem to be on board to be like, do what's best for the show, do what's best for the fans. But at the same time, I don't think this is the style of racing you should see in Formula E every single weekend, because as Sam Bird says, running this close together, you could potentially go airborne. Yeah, that was quite a crash Nico Miller had. Glad he's okay from that. I remember seeing the images from the drivers watching the replay of Miller's crash, and they were like, ugh. Yeah, because that was certainly quite a big one, and we're lucky that we didn't see a much bigger crash compared to how close that they were running. It was really interesting overall to see how nobody wanted to lead. And Jake Keys said in his interview with Joe that running in the middle was even more challenging, because when you're in the middle, you don't want to run to the back, and then you're wasting too much energy. Try not to go to the back. Try not to fall at the very back of the field. And unfortunately for Hughes, that's exactly where he ended up finishing towards the rear. So definitely, I personally enjoyed the race at Portland International Raceway. I understand both sides of the equation, but at the same time, like I said, I don't think this is a type of racing that we should see at every other Formula E race. If it's like twice a year, or just like you see at the super speedways, Daytona and Talladega, which is just a few times a year, that style of racing, it's probably not going to be a bad thing. But if we see this type of racing at almost every other Formula E circuit, that's when we're probably going to run into some problems.
Yeah, my take on it from the weekend was the tracks we've seen this pack racing at, as Adam says, next year's Formula Race of Portland should sell out. It probably will. I'm definitely going to be there. I've got a year now to get there. If we look at it, where were we? Sao Paulo, that was supposed to be the first race where we had this pit stop practice thing situation. Berlin was supposed to have it. Monaco was supposed to have it. And now here in Portland was supposed to have it. And there are 3 races where we had nothing but pack racing. At the end of the day, you can't really win, because we discussed this a bit on the grid, on Grid Encore. No, on the main Grid wrap-up show, actually. You're damned if you don't, because we have pack racing and 406 overtakes, whatever it was, in one race, or we don't have a race with any overtaking. Fans complain. My opinion was it's not going to be here forever, this pack racing, because the charge is going to come in next year, so we're not going to have this unique situation. I enjoyed it for the spectacle, because it kept me awake at 1 a.m. in the morning to commentate on the race, UK time. And it was very energetic, very good stuff. Yes, we knew people were trying to, but people in the middle of the pack were still battling it out, and people at the back were still battling. So it wasn't just at the front that nobody wanted to lead. They were actively battling all the way throughout. We saw 6 wide at one point at a very narrow part of the track into turns 9 and 10. So it was a good race, and there was a lot to look forward to. But I do agree with Matt's point. It's not good to see pack racing and Formula cars. As I put in the private chat just between you two, are we scarred from what we've seen in IndyCar over the past with pack racing at ovals and on road courses that can end in huge accidents? But at the same time, like in touring cars, we see pack racing, we love it. So I think Formula E has done a nice little in-between where you like to see it, but you don't like always to see it. So I think it's just a nice in-between there. And I think the energy saving is going to go away next year anyway, once they get the power regen sorted with the pit stops, and you can add about 20 kilowatts of power back to the battery or whatever it is for next season. So it's not going to be around forever. So my take on it is enjoying it. So I'm sort of on the fence between you two there. I think that's a nice little compromise. We've got 1 for, 1 against, and 1 in the middle. Although I think Matt's more leaning towards the middle now. Joe's watching as well, saying with Portland International Raceway, there isn't any options to charge the course unless you change the course, unless you broke up the long straights with chicanes. Usually, visually, it was a stunning sight to see in person. I don't think Matt and Kobe, I don't think you can break up with chicanes, can you, on that track, because it's quite narrow to have the chicanes in. The straights are narrow. Yeah,
and that was one of my next points to make, which was I said how slow the cars looked, but the track's this wide in places where we're normally funneling people through, like we'll see at Chicago at the weekend in NASCAR, very narrow pieces of road. So maybe that didn't help it. Don't forget, Josh, we had those races at Valencia in
Yes.
in the COVID year in 2020, and they did put the 2 chicanes on the front straightaway, and it just looked a bit silly. So maybe they binned that idea off. Yes, okay, the drivers did all, so to them, 75% of them said, yeah, it was cool and it was good. But if one of them had been turned around at the end of the back straightaway in the middle of the chicane and then all piled in, then maybe we wouldn't be having the same discussion, because we would have ended up with broken cars. And we saw, Robin Frins in the first race of the season in a pretty innocuous accident, broke his wrist. So we got away with one in that respect, to not have damage, accidents, injuries, and the lot, and many safety car laps for clearing up things like that for these guys that aren't so used to pack racing, unlike IndyCar, where we saw that one of the IndyCar classic races at Texas earlier in the year. Okay, it's a very much different formula, but I guess, as you say, with this charging system potentially coming in for next year, if they get it all signed off in time, then maybe we've got we've got Rome, a double header at Rome and a double header at London to come. They're not going to be like this, that's for sure. One of the best circuits on the calendar, Rome next. Love that place. If it rains like it did a couple of years ago, then it'll be tremendous. So we won't get it again, maybe ever, if we go back to some sort of pit stop like we used to have with the car changes and such like in the middle of the race from next season.
Joe also says they did narrow the entry to the Shelton chicane to slow the cars down and make it more entertaining. I'll try that again. To slow the cars down more on entering. Surprised didn't see more chaos there. We saw a little bit, Kobe, didn't we, on the restarts? They were going 5 wide, then they all sort of backed out. But I think because they knew the walls were there, everyone was a bit well behaved, weren't they?
Yeah, for sure. During the weekend, I actually thought we were going to see massive chaos in the Sheldon chicane, like we seen it during the NASCAR Xfinity Series races and in the IndyCar races. There always seemed like during every IndyCar race there, we always see someone go off in the Sheldon chicane. I thought we were going to see a pile up there in Formula E, but surprisingly they kept it all clean. It was really crazy seeing them fan out at the end of the straight like that, but they all made it through for the most part and just carried on with their day.
Joe says, I'm curious, similar to have the pack find its way together at Talladega, the way Portland International Raceway is compared to other tracks. Will the pack reform after pit stops? I think the way it's going at the moment is that everyone's going to be having to pit within a 3-lap window. So you've got an option, a bit like with the attack mode, you can take it during the race, but it's inside 3 laps. So you have to take it at one of those intervals to come in and change over. And then you get the more power for the rest of the race. So we could see them have it allocated later on in the race between certain times. So it's going to be a lot of fun, the pit stops, and I think it will put them all back together. But personally, with Formula E, I prefer them just to stay out on the track for the entire race and just go for it. It's endurance racing with electric motors.
I don't want to continue my negative Nancy, but that attack mode again at the weekend, it's not working, is it? That system is flawed massively. We saw people getting it. I think it was Nick Cassidy was one of them. He got both of these out the way really early. I'm done with this now. I don't need to worry about it with the rest of the race. So that needs altering for next season if it continues, which I'm sure it will.
And behind the mic, which is Matthew, says the good news on all of this is that you're talking about Formula E this early in the show. It means people are paying attention and having opinions. Absolutely, as well. We need to get Formula E on the USON network. I'll cover it. May as well. We're covering everything else on the planet at the moment. Cricket, Wimbledon, Formula One. I'm doing IndyCar this weekend as you guys are getting ready for Chicago. So it's a busy one. And then, Wimbledon next week. So best month of the year for USON coming up. And are we finished? Nope. Joe says the attack mode I thought was going to be more powerful at PAR, but didn't do much. I think it's this stupid system they've got where you get 8 minutes and you have to attack it either in 2-2s, or it's a 2-2-4, or a 4-2-2, or a 4-4 motion at the moment. And it just doesn't make sense. They're changing it so much. I much preferred it when it was for 4 minutes earlier on in the race, and you could have a 1-2. A 1-3 or a 2-2 or a 3-1. That was much more simple. The way it is now, it's too long. And I think, is that causing more of the battery drain? The fact that having longer attack modes at these tracks and it's draining the batteries. So if we went back to the old format, it'd be better.
Save more and slow down. Don't forget also when they launched attack mode, they said that it was going to be different every weekend, and every weekend it was almost exactly the same, which you thought was going to be a curveball for teams that have to try and figure it out into their strategy. And then every week it was 4 minutes, especially in the first season of it. So been a bit different in this last couple of races, but yeah, it's definitely that is something that they need to work on. Lots of things going on in the background at Formula E. That's something that needs to be addressed, I think, for next season.
Personally, scrap it. That's what I like. Pure racing, please, with electric stuffs. Anyway, time to move on with the show, and we're going to hand over to Matt White now for the latest with the Grid EPI update.
Thank you, Josh. And we've talked a lot of EPI already, really, tonight with our Watkins Glen roundup. We'll just run through the winners again from the weekend, barring appeal. Colin Phillippi and Nick Yelloly winning in the BMW for Team RLL. They needed some sugar after their season across all categories in IMSA and IndyCar. So congratulations to everyone associated with that program and that team. Maybe this will turn their season around. George Kurtz, Ben Hanley and Nolan Siegel winning LMP2. Guy Robinson, Felipe Fraga and Josh Burden in LMP3. As we mentioned, a Lexus sweep of GTD with Jack Hawksworth and Ben Barnicoat winning in Pro. Frankie Montecalvo, Parker Thompson and Aaron Tielitz winning in the GTD category. That's Parker Thompson's first IMSA win. So congratulations to him, the former Porsche Carrera Cup North America champion. It wasn't the only game in town in the endurance performance index of the weekend. We had the latest round of the DTM. They were at the beach at Zandvoort. 2 races across the weekend. Mauro Engel winning for Mercedes on Saturday, his first win in the championship since 2017. A long time between drinks for Mauro, and Ricardo Feller winning for Audi on Sunday. So he's now 62 races down of 151 in the 2023 Grid Endurance Performance Index. And let's have a look at where the standings are as we head into July. 12 weeks down, Rio Hirakawa and Sebastian Buemi still at the top of the championship with their Toyota teammate Brendan Hartley in third position, the runners-up from Le Mans a few weeks ago. Felipe Leza was not in action over the weekend. His his Nürburgring 24-hour victory keeping him inside the top 5. Jack Hawksworth is fifth. He's the highest of the guys that ran at the weekend, and he improves his score with that win at Watkins Glen. Antonio Garcia and Jordan Taylor joint 6th. They're the highest people not to win a race in any form so far this year. So far, the Corvette pairing, Timo Bogoslawski in 8th, and then we've got a 4-way tie for 9th, all of them coming from Super GT. So Ritumo Miata and Sho Tsubo, they're showing on your screen. We've also got a couple of other guys also on the same points, Kaz Masachio and Mitsunori Takaboshi. They're all on 14.33. Those guys inside the top 10 courtesy of a win. That is your top 50. And we've got the final big 24-hour race of the season this weekend. It's the only EPI race coming up this weekend. And it's the CrowdStrike Spa 24 hours, much earlier in the season than it would be usually. Thank you, Formula One, for moving all the dates around. That is the big race of the weekend. And I'd say it is big. 271 drivers on the entry list for the 24 hours of Spa. So much EPI spreadsheet action will be happening in the early part of next week. I'm not on the show live next week, so I'll bring you the update in a drop-in video form like we did a couple of weeks ago. And really looking forward to one of the best races of the season at Spa this weekend. It is the 24 hours.
Yeah, and I just noticed that Spa got a new title sponsor here. For so many years, we've known as the Total 24 Hours of Spa. Now it's the CrowdStrike 24 Hours of Spa. But yeah, looking forward to checking out Spa this weekend whenever I can. Really enjoy that. I really enjoy the SRO's premier GT3 event in the world. And next, some more motorsports news from around the world. But we're going to start off right now on a sad note and share some serious news with you all. I'm sure you've already heard that Legacy Motor Club has said that they're withdrawing Jimmy Johnson's number 84 Carvana Chevrolet from the NASCAR Cup Series race this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. According to Fox 23, which is based in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Johnson's mother-in-law, father-in-law, and nephew were found dead. The local police are investigating this as a murder-suicide. NASCAR released a statement saying they're saddened by the tragic deaths of Chandra Johnson's family, and they extend their deepest condolences to the entire Johnson and Janway families. As you can see here on the screen, the Johnson family is asking for privacy at this time, and no further statements will be made. On behalf of everyone here at Grid Network, we send our prayers and extend our deepest condolences to Jimmy, his wife Chandra, and their entire family during this extremely difficult time. Next, NASCAR Xfinity Series driver Sheldon Creed was penalized after Saturday's race at Nashville Superspeedway. Creed was docked 25 points and fined $25,000 during the race. Creed was racing Sammy Smith, got into the number 18 Toyota Supra, which caused Smith to back it into the wall. In a statement, NASCAR said they reviewed Creed's radio communications and determined that their findings clearly resulted in the number 2 Chevrolet wrecking the number 18 of Smith. At Watkins Glen, Chevrolet announced the future of its GT racing program in sports car racing, with the new Corvette 6 GT3R making its debut in 2024. The factory Corvette racing team will go from a full factory effort to being a factory-supported team. They'll be under a new name in 2024, Corvette Racing by Pratt Miller Motorsports. 2 Corvettes will run full-time in GTD Pro, starting with the Rolex 24 in Daytona in 2024. The driver lineup is going to be announced at a later date. Also, we received some more news earlier today that TF Sport is leaving Aston Martin because they'll be fielding 2 Corvette Z6 GT3Rs in the FIA World Endurance Championship's new LM GT3 category next year. Photo courtesy of Chevrolet. Next, some more Formula E news. Coverage of Formula E races in the United States got a big shot in the arm with an expanded partnership with CBS Sports and the addition of Roku streaming service, which is the #1 TV streaming platform in North America. Starting in January 2024, 5 races will air live on CBS Television Network and simulcast on Paramount Plus. Roku users will subscribe to Paramount Plus can easily enjoy the races airing on the service through the Paramount Plus app on Roku Sports Experience. CBS Sports will also show 1 highlights program per round. Roku plans to introduce a Formula E content library, including the docu-follow series Unplugged, including race previews, highlights, race replays, and more. RT Davos, the chief media officer at Formula E, said this powerful new partnership with CBS and Roku will dramatically increase Formula E's audience reach and maximize the chances viewers will discover Formula E programming in America. David Ellenberg, head of content at Roku Media, said it's an honor to partner with Formula E on Roku's first ever live sports partnership, making it easier for millions of TV streamers to discover the thrill of Formula E races through the unique integrated viewing experiences only available on Roku. Photo courtesy of Formula E. Proton Competition released deliveries for its programs in the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship and the FIA World Endurance Championship. It was previously announced that run a Porsche 963 and GTP in the hypercar classes. In the WC, they'll debut the number 99 WeatherTech sponsored Porsche at Monza with Harry Tinknell, Jimmy Bruni, and newly announced signing Neil Yanni. Over in IMSA, we'll see the number 59 Porsche debut at Road America with Tinknell and Bruni behind the wheel. Graphic courtesy of Proton. And next, I'll throw it over to Matt for everyone's favorite game, Pick a Winner.
Bit of extra Neil Yanni news. He's also been announced as Audi's simulator driver for their Formula One program, which is obviously on the pipeline coming down. Yes, Pick a Winner. It's back again for another busy weekend. There is the standings, and we have to congratulate Kobe. He is now top of the points on 25, ahead of Ed by 2 on 23. I've slipped to 7th. This is no good at all. And Josh is inside the top 10 in 9th on 13. So that's where we stand. But Kobe has a 2-point lead. Not so many this weekend. We've got Formula One, of course, back at the Red Bull Ring in Austria, IndyCar at Mid-Ohio, and, of course, the NASCAR Cup Series race at Chicago. The Pick a Winner bits and pieces are up on social media. Joe's managed to get that done this afternoon. So that is where you will find the option to give your picks. We are going to do our Pick a Winner for the Saturday sprint race in Formula One. I'm not going to go first for a change. I'm going to hand it over to you guys.
Okay, I'm going to make it simple. Max Verstappen.
Max Verstappen will win the sprint. It's a wet one as well, so be watching out for that one. It's going to be a wet weekend for Friday and Saturday. It's going to make the sprint qualifying more fun, but come on, no one can stop this guy. At his favourite track, where he's won, 5-6 races, it's his. It's so his. Although he did retire here in 2020, so anything's possible, but nah. And I missed the Formula E race. I'm hard of hearing, and I forgot they are on after I turned them on. Yeah, it's sometimes there are, sometimes they're not. But hey, tell you what, I put this in the chat? Do you remember? I'm saving this stat for the commentary box, but I'll say it here. Nice little stat for you here. Ferrari's winless seasons, because it's coming up on 1 year since Ferrari last won a Grand Prix with Charles Leclerc at the Austrian Grand Prix. Now, out of the 74 seasons we've currently had of Formula One, Ferrari have been winless in 17 of them. That's 16 in the past, 17 including this year. The longest gap without a win came between 1991 and 1993. It's 3 years. But the longest run with wins in a season was 19 years, 1994 till 2013. But they didn't win in 1950, 57, 62, 65, 67, 69, 73, 80, 86, 91, 92, 93, and then a long time until then 2014, 2016, 2020, 2021, and currently 2023. So at the past 10 seasons, they've been winless in 5 of them. Now, for Ferrari, that is a shocking stat. And if they don't win this weekend, it will begin another little bit of a dark time for the team that are already struggling with the SF23 as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, there you go. That's my little pick a winner and a little Ferrari fact for you in the Styrian Mountains.
Considering the driver lineup that Ferrari have had in those 10 years, you think Fernando Alonso, Sebastian Vettel, Kimi Raikkonen, and Charles Leclerc, that is a pretty shocking stat indeed, isn't it? I thought I threw it to you guys, maybe we'd get a difference, but I would agree with you. I'm picking Max Verstappen too. Although I kind of think if it is wet, look out for George Russell at the weekend. So it's not really a dark horse pick because they're probably the second or third best car, but that's my slight dark horse pick for the weekend if there's some rain around in the Styrian Hills.
I'm surprised about Fernando Alonso. Yeah, I thought you would have definitely gone for Alonso in the wet. That car's got upgrades this weekend.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. They were back on form, weren't they, in Canada a couple of weeks ago. Let's see if they can continue that. Time for Hots and Knots, though, as we pick a winner to one side. Josh, I'll let you open the floor with your hot from the weekend.
2 hots for me. The first one being actually 3 hots. There you go. Hot number 1, fantastic weekend of action from what I covered as well in the commentary box for MotoGP. Cracking Moto3 race, cracking Moto2, cracking MotoGP. I think after a difficult couple of weeks where the series didn't really know what it was doing, at the TT Assen, the most historic circuit they go to, it's basically their version of Silverstone. They've done really, really well. Packed out grandstands and really strong. Second hot, I've got to go to our own Julia Truzovic as well, who joined me in the commentary box. Her first live commentary across the weekend, and she was in the MotoGP quali, sprint and race, and she did absolutely brilliantly. So much so that by the end of it, she threw down to an interview just by doing the screens like I do. And I wrote on a little post-it note and put it up to the camera saying, "That's amazing TV professional skill you've already picked up." So well done to Julia, who's becoming a commentator very, very quickly. And the third hot I've gone for this weekend is Dorna. That's a weird one, isn't it? After the couple of weeks. Yeah, do you know why? They've dropped everything. I got everything gone. Strike gone, everything sorted. And Dorna, I understand, are now looking at ways that they can introduce more social media into the paddock. So, victory, thy name is Birch.
Excellent news. And if you don't know the backstory to that, check out last week's Hots and Knots for the Josh doing the run through. Upright Fossil says Ferrari fans are well aware of being heartbroken year after year, race after race. Matthew Owens behind the mic will know about that. Sorry, Matt. Adam says what's hot is Shane Van Gisbergen at Chicago this weekend, and he wants to try an oval race. Yes. Ooh. Cannot wait. He is my pick a winner for NASCAR. I already got it in. I don't think it's going to happen, but it would be amazing.
He's my pick a winner too.
I'm going to go with the McLaughlin Van Gisbergen double. They're both going to win at the weekend in 2 different series. That's not happened before. My hot for the weekend, I've got a couple. Jake, you mentioned it earlier. If you watched the last couple of weeks, I'm a bit behind with MotoGP, but Jake Dixon, excellent. Well done. Fantastic. That's been coming for a little while. He's had some ups and downs, and he finally got a Moto2 win. Yes, Matthew says, yes, we are very well aware of that. But he was pleased with the Le Mans win a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
My other hot was someone I've been a little bit negative of during the season on social media and on this show, Ross Chastain. Great win at the weekend at Nashville at the team's home track. That's now Kyle Busch winning at Gateway when Brody Kostecki was in attendance, Supercars driver, and Chastain winning at Nashville with SVG in town, Supercars driver. As an SVG, as a Supercars driver in the race this weekend, he's going to win. No, let's see. So they're my two hots from the weekend. Joe says hot sold out at PII. Yes, that was excellent to see, and not DS Penske reader entry. That was going to be my not. So let's transfer to knots then. What were they thinking with that?
God!
So if you didn't see it, the Team Penske, the DS Penske team set up a RFID reader at pit in at Portland. This is we'll go with allegedly, but they've been fined for it, so it must be true. To scan all the cars as they came in to check tyres and whatnot. We see it in WEC and IMSA when they come out, so that everyone's got the tyre data. This was like pit in, not something we've ever seen in Formula E before, and how they thought they were ever going to get away with that is beyond me.
I kind of wish I was there now, because I would have immediately gone down and said, what was going on there? It was so clearly a cheat, and I don't know how they've got away with it. I really don't. And the Penskes have got lucky. They really have. DS Penske got so lucky they didn't get kicked out of the race. I've got a feeling it's because it's DS Penske. It's Penske. You can't throw Penske out of an American race. So I think they've got away with the fine. But personally, I would have thrown them out and banned them for a race or two, because it's so much information. It's effectively the cheat codes as well. I mean, for those of you who've played the Simpsons game from 2007, the whole thing is about when Bart gets the walkthrough for the entire game falling from the sky. So it's just basically just reading through the walkthrough and how to cheat everything. It's basically what they've got. The ultimate cheat code. They would have known the setup of the cars, the tire pressures, everything, data, battery remaining, everything. They would have known everything from that INFD scanner. And it's just so clearly a cheat, and it just grates on me. So that is definitely not. It was big when it was announced on the track.
Oh, go on.
You go first, and I'll try to think.
It was big on social media, Joe, as well, when it was announced as well. Everyone was blowing up deluxe.
We made quali. Yeah, we made quali commentary.
Exactly
What's going on?
In the middle of the qualifying session. More knots. We mentioned MotoGP in hot. We have to mention them in not too. What is Marc Marquez doing at the moment? He's crashed into the back of Bastianini off the racing line at 2 miles an hour in qualifying. Or no, end of practice 3, wasn't it? While he was trying to get a lap in at the end to get him in, was just not the thing of a multiple-time world champion. That was traffic lights in the middle of London at 20 miles an hour on a moped kind of accident. More stewarding decisions gone wrong. Pedro Acosta shouldn't have got a long lap penalty, but then wasn't penalised for going through it in an incorrect manner. Brad Binder.
Oh, twice the same thing.
Silly. Yeah, last lap on the green, as they say in the BT box. Track limits and dropped him a spot. But Jorge Martin didn't get one for doing the same thing. What? So what are they doing? My other not, as I said, was probably going to be Formula E, but we've pretty much covered that off. Oh, and my other not was, and Kobe will agree with this because he was watching the Watkins Glen race. 7 minutes to go of 6 hours. You go to an advert break on a streaming. I know Ben's already covered this off on the network already, but I will use the line that John Hindhaugh always says on IMSA radio: no breaks, no blocks. Why they can't roll that out? I know there's contracts and money and everything else, but why we all can't have the same thing is a bit silly. Matthews is still Stuart Haas Racing. Yes, good Lord, Chase Briscoe is legitimately being run out by Rick Ware Racing and JJ Yelloly. He had a shocking run again with a new crew chief as well, which we talked about on the show last week. Maybe going to turn their season around at the 14 team, but he had a shocker at Nashville. He'll probably pop up and win the race at Chicago, though, knowing that's the thing that Chase Briscoe would do. Knots from you then, Josh.
Definitely the FIM stewards. I think we discussed this in the commentary box a lot, that they're just making zero sense this weekend. I mean, you mentioned the Acosta one. That's now being appealed by several teams to say he should have actually got a penalty post for not doing it correctly, but he shouldn't have got one to begin with. So they might let that one die down. But the Brad Binder one sticks with me because he got given a 3-position penalty, didn't he? 3-second time penalty for touching the green just close, both in the sprint at the same part of the track at the exit turn 10 in both the sprint and the Grand Prix. But Luca Marini touches the green coming out of the last corner and only gets a 0.5 of a second penalty, so half a second time penalty. That drops him down 3 places. So how come the same thing for Marini, he's only docked half a second, and the same thing for Binder, he's dropped 3 seconds? It doesn't make sense. It's madness. And I think because it's also not done on line technology, it's done on eyeline. So it's basically just looking at a laptop. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It doesn't work. I keep saying it. I've said it before. Sack Freddie Spencer. Get him out. Get him out. He's not good enough. He's not good enough in this modern age. He needs to go, and we need to get a proper team in there that can deal with these stewardings. Another notch to try and throw up there. I didn't like Formula E adjusting the times. That's one thing I didn't like because the Formula E race shifted 5 hours later than it was supposed to be. It's supposed to be on at 9:30 British summer time, and it ended up at 1 a.m. Didn't like that they changed it quite late in the day. And I didn't like also the fact that they had what's his name on the grid? Will Smith's son. It goes off my top of my head now. He was on the grid, and he to be fair, I said at the time, looked quite good. He was into it. He was interviewing. He was doing really well, and good to have someone on there, celebrity who actually knows the stuff. But I don't agree with the fact that could have been done by a professional racing driver, and they got a celebrity to do it. That felt a bit to me. And final knot I'm trying to think of is this whole confusing thing that BT Sport have done, where they've said every one of their presenters have said, "Oh, goodbye BT Sport MotoGP. Thanks for the last 10 years as well." And then everyone's been going, "What? What's going on? What, you're not covering anymore?" Failing to tell people that it's just rebranding to TNT before Silverstone, and it's the same team, same commentators, same everything. It's just they're changing names. So that's caused a little bit of a thing on Twitter. But other than that, nothing. It was quite a flat weekend. Talk to me next week when we would have had the sprint race, and I'd be going here, there, and everywhere and working things out up in the commentary box and going, what on earth are we doing for a sprint race that nobody actually cares about? So much so that I think the sprint race format's actually dying out quite good now across every series. I think MotoGP are the most successful because it sort of works, their system. But even they're starting to go, well, we've technically just done a season now. And it's like, I'm aching a bit too much. And it's affecting Marc. Marc Marquez hasn't yet finished a Grand Prix this year. He's finished sprint races, but he hasn't yet finished an actual Grand Prix. And that's shocking. I think we're close to seeing Marc either retiring or moving teams. I saw Marc Marquez's manager hanging outside the KTM garage. That was on the BT camera throughout the weekend. Julia's been hearing as well KTM as well as Ducati, so it could be anywhere that he goes. I think more than likely it'll be a KTM. It's a different challenge for him without anyone around, and that could go from on the championship. Jaden Smith, thank you, Adam. He says, yeah, Jaden Smith was in there too. So I think we're in for an interesting one. But yeah, not much on the knots for me this weekend from my point of view. But yeah, and yes, Peacock and NBC as a whole is a big knot. Rick Allendale, Hadjian, and NBC are just terrible. Yeah, I think, was it you? Oh, no, it could have been either you, Matt, or Ben, who said after 6 seasons of having Junior in the box, he just doesn't quite work still.
Yeah, it was Ben. Again, I guess they must have talked about it at the weekend or since, but they had Dale and Jeff Burton down at the end of pit lane at the beginning of the race on Sunday. You couldn't hear a word they were saying. They won't be doing that again. 2 other knots I thought of quickly before we go. Ryan Blaney's crash and the fact that there was no safety barrier. That was a big hit. It rung the bell of Blaney quite big time. So that was not what we want to see. And my other knot, back to MotoGP, was we don't have a Brit in the top class, but TV Direction decided as he was about to win his first Grand Prix to put him in the tower and go back to a battle for second at the final chicane, of which nothing happened and on the full screen, you missed Jake coming across the line to take his first Grand Prix win.
Yeah, I got annoyed at that. I did actually get really annoyed at that in the box.
It was quite annoying. Marquez, by the way, there was a story going around today I've seen bumblings of that someone in MotoGP has suggested or said that they won't be exploring the option to extend teams to have free bikes.
Oh.
Like when we had Pedrosa, Stoner and Dovizioso in the Repsol team, because Dovizioso had a contract and they had to honour it. So they ran the free bikes for the 2 years, I think it was.
Yeah.
They won't be doing that again. So if Marquez does want to go, well, let's be honest, Marquez wants to go. If they can find him somewhere for him to go, someone else will have to be given the bucket full of money to get out of a seat for Marquez, be that Binder, Miller, Bastianini, whoever. Someone's going to have to be given a lot of cash.
Dead man's boots, isn't it? That's what they call it when they go in. Right, it's not going to be... Right, Bagnaia's staying. I don't think... Right, he won't go to Factory Ducati because of Bagnaia. So that's Bastianini safe. They could kick out Fabio Di Giannantonio and put him alongside Alex, but history shows that's a bit of a recipe for disaster putting them two together on the Glen issues. So, well, then when he was at Honda, it didn't work out. So maybe not there. Trying to think. Mooney? No, they're doing really well. Mooney VR46. Would Valentino Rossi have Marc Marquez there? No. I'll tell you what, though, Mark might pursue that, riding for his legend. It could be, but I don't think Rossi would want him after 2015. So that's.
But then does Valentino get rid of his half brother to get Marquez in?
Or the man
or Bez, who's been probably the star of the season outside of Pecco.
Yeah. So it's not there.
A couple of races, so that's not going to happen. He won't go to Yamaha because the bike's rubbish.
Aprilia? Could he? Aleix maybe go?
Aleix, yeah.
That could be
was Aleix Espargaro in. A hot was Aleix Espargaro in the cool down room when he splashed water all over the floor. That was funny. I saw a still of that. I keep saying I've not watched MotoGP, but I seem to have known a lot about what's happening.
You know a lot what's going on, yeah.
I've infused it somehow. Yeah, where else could he go? Espargaro probably going to be his last year next year, Aleix. So if Mark can hang on for another 12 months, then there might be a spot opening there with Vinales, maybe. Let's see. This weekend, NASCAR brings back the radio version of the broadcast. It says Upright Fossil. Yeah, they're going to have Rick and Steve in the booth over the pit lane and Dale Jr. down at one end and Jeff Burton at another, like they do at Watkins Glen. And Mike Bagley from Sirius will be part of the TV call in a radio style. Which they do on NBC at the races. NBC will never match JB for broadcasting. Said it before, say it again. JB is by a country mile the best play-by-play broadcast. There you go, Josh.
Oh, thank you. That's boosted my night. Thank you, Right Fossil. Yeah, we're looking at doing a couple of NASCARs, actually. We're looking into that next year to pigtail some of the USRN coverage on the channel, and then I'll do some races. You lot do the races that... I do the races you lot can't do, basically. I'm looking into that.
One other hot that I've just thought of, talking about broadcasting, and we talked about A1 Grand Prix a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, right. What have you got?
Great story well, I haven't got anything, but there was a great story by James Newbold on Autosport today, featuring some quotes from guys of old, Oliver Jarvis, Neil Yarney, Adam Carroll, all saying, yes, it'd be great to get it back. It's just bubbling nicely.
Right.
I promise to try and get something for 2 weeks' time when I'm back on the show live. I will try to get... Even if it's the smallest nugget of information, I will try to get something.
I've got another bit of broadcasting news for you as well. Harry Benjamin has left the Formula 3 World Feed commentary. He's been replaced by Chris McCarthy, as Harry has been given the permanent replacement at BBC Radio 5 Live for the Formula 1 commentary that you also hear stateside on, I think it's Sirius XM. So it is now Harry Benjamin permanently in that place after Jack Nicholls was released from the contracts a few months ago. Still going after the Formula E job, I am, and hopefully, Matt, you're going to get us in for the A1GP gigs.
Let's see what happens. We'll try our best.
Yeah, we'll have to leave USRN and someone in charge, but yeah, it's going to be looking good. Okay, we've got a crazy weekend for you as well, so please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, in the video description below, click the link to find all our content from the Portland E-Prix. Lots of footage from Portland International Raceway and intriguing driver interviews as well. Thanks to Grid Network CEO and founder Joe Samiego for being trackside this weekend. Outstanding work, and loved every second of it as well. And thank you also to the person for sending us over some videos that we could do in the watch along as well. And thank you back home for helping us reach the milestone of 600 subscribers. Now help us on our new goal at 700 subscribers on the road to the 1,000. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notifications. Follow all our social medias platforms and visit gridranking.com as well. Take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon, and you can join Colin, Mark, Tashelle, Robin, and David in investing each month in the Grid Network. And we encourage you to join the amazing group of people who keep us on the air. And once we hit $500 per month, we can start expanding our coverage by adding new members to the team and having our team on site cover more races. The link for all that is in the video description as well. And if you want to do a one-time donation, you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link and get your name on the board and invest as much as you want, and consider buying a specific on-air personality a cup of coffee, and they'll thank you on the air. For Kobe Lambeth at the Podium Finish and Matt White from Grid API, I'm Joshua Birch, and I want to say everyone here on the team, our thoughts and prayers are with the Johnson family right now after their tragic news. We are sending you our best wishes and full support in the motorsport community. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Good night.
Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.